Now we got Doug Collins, former Georgia Republican congressman, and Kevin Walling, former Biden campaign surrogate. Thanks to both of you for joining me today. Doug, you know, the balance of power is determined. This is the last Senate race, a sort of holdout, a straggler here, yet it's still pretty important.
It is very important, I think, from two perspectives. Number one, if Walker wins tomorrow, which we're hoping that he will do, then it maintains the power sharing agreement in the Senate, which means that Schumer has to go through a lot more procedural hurdles to get things out of committee, especially if it's deadlocked in committee. That means especially with appointments and other things like that. So it is important, especially now with the House being in Republican hands. The second thing it also does is prepare sort of a gateway to 2024, when the map is going to be definitely much more in the Republicans' favor in the Senate, with the ones that Democrats are going to be having to defend most of the seats. So it just sets up a precursor to that race where you only have to win other Republican seats and not have to worry about, and you already have the advantage in Georgia.
Kevin, how do the Democrats view the status right now? Is this race really still open?
Yeah, Gillian, it's critically important, and I think you're seeing Democrats really encouraged by this early voting numbers. Nearly 2 million Georgians have already gone to the polls, smashing runoff election results in the past. Estimates show that Warnock is leading by about 300,000 or so of those ballots, which is going to be critical heading into tomorrow. That's a big gap for Herschel Walker to try to make up. And to Doug's point, and he knows Georgia better than anyone, this is critical in that it is part of that power sharing. If we get 51, Chuck Schumer has a lot more breathing room with folks like West Virginia's Joe Manchin and Arizona's Kyrsten Sinema. It also gives the vice president a little bit of breathing room, too, where she doesn't have to be that tie-breaking vote a lot in the Senate. So Democrats are certainly really focused on this race.
Doug, take a look at this. Recent op-ed from the Daily Caller says a 51-49 Senate means that Chuck Schumer can tell Kentucky Republican Mitch McConnell to suck moonshine. In contrast, 50-50 would force Schumer to respect Republicans. Is that true?
Oh, come on. I mean, look, it makes it a lot harder. It means that McConnell, if anybody believes that Mitch McConnell's not going to still make a powerful play as a minority leader, they're just fooling themselves. Look, and I'll do to Kevin's point, and Kevin and I go back and forth about this. If the vice president doesn't have to be in the Senate all the time breaking ties, maybe she could find where the southern border is.
Kevin.
Maybe.
Get you to respond to that. She has not been.
Absolutely. I've been advocating for a long time that this administration needs to focus more on the border and solutions down there. But I don't think it's a bad thing for Mitch McConnell to be drinking moonshine. So I don't think that's a threat whatsoever to the Republican leader.
Guys, take a look at this. More on Twitter's release of those Hunter Biden files. So the mainstream media is not wasting time now. They're going straight after the messenger, in this case, Matt Taibbi. He's the one who posted those internal Twitter communications. Here's just a few of a ton of reactions. Quote, imagine volunteering to do online PR work for the world's richest man and then pretending you're speaking truth to power. Another one, watching some of the most famous, most powerful and richest men red pill themselves into disaster. And a third, what a sad, disgraceful downfall. Taibbi will eat well for the rest of his life, I guess, but is it worth it? And then Elon Musk clapping back with this.
Well, I think those people should be looking in the mirror and wondering why they were deceptive. Why did they deceive the American public? And instead of trying to redirect blame to Matt Taibbi, they should be accepting some responsibility themselves for not being truthful to the American public.
A new op-ed titled "The Media's Hunter Biden Collusion" says the Twitter files dump has them on defense, attacking the messenger, adding that the media are, quote, too invested in suppression of Hunter Biden's story to acknowledge extent of the scandal. Kevin, I'll come to you first. What do you think?
Well, I think, listen, the 2020 election was decided not about Hunter Biden, and he was brought up during the debates between former President Trump and President Biden. It was decided on the state of COVID and jobs and the economy, and that's why Americans went to the polls. So I don't think this is a winning message to focus so much on Hunter Biden, especially with
push back, Kevin.
I
don't think anybody is arguing that Americans in the tens of millions went out to the polls on this story. But it gets to the heart of First Amendment rights here, which is the freedom of Americans to express themselves, in this case, on a social media platform. That's what was stifled.
And it's
worrying about the impacts on the election is a secondary concern.
Well, and we can have that
Yeah,
debate in terms of the constitutional nature of it. You know, Twitter's a private company. The First Amendment, unfortunately, doesn't apply to Twitter. They can censor and do whatever they please. That's why I think we need more regulation and more eyes on what social media is doing. But I think this was mostly a nothing burger coming out of this release. And, you know, you saw Republicans and Democrats on both sides asking Twitter to take down some controversial pieces that were in violation, certainly, of some of the Twitter standards. And sometimes Twitter went along with it. But if, you know, Elon believes in full transparency, release all the files, not this curated thing as a partisan kind of hack that Elon is now, where he says he endorses Republicans for the House and the Senate this past election. He's not an honest broker with this.
Yeah. Look, I think there's the old thing, thou dost protest too much here. I mean, I think that's what's happening. I mean, they're getting into what their Twitter world was, and they had been able to cultivate it. Here, I don't, again, the First Amendment, Kevin's very right there, but I think the other issue here is it could be viewed more as a campaign in-kind